The Houthis in Yemen fired yet another ballistic missile at Israel on Sunday morning, and this time the interceptors did not manage to hit it before it impacted near the Ben Gurion International Airport in central Israel. The IDF is investigating why the interceptors failed to bring it down, as they have done many times in the past, including 4 successful interceptions of incoming missiles from Yemen over the weekend. And meanwhile, the IDF issued emergency order number 8, calling up tens of thousands of reservists so they can be deployed in the north and free up regular forces for a large and hopefully final offensive in the Gaza Strip. Israel's cabinet is expected to approve a plan for this offensive soon, with 2 key issues continuing to dominate the agenda. The first is the renewal of humanitarian aid entry to the Palestinians, this time through a civilian company, and President Trump's vision for a voluntary immigration. Further afield and outside Israel's territorial waters, a Hamas vessel under commercial cover was hit by a drone as it sailed in the waters near the Malta over the weekend. And Western security sources confirmed that the ship was on its way to the Gaza Strip, intending to cause friction with IDF forces and to break the naval blockade. Israel is so far avoiding taking responsibility for the strike, and meanwhile, Hamas tried to act against Israel from Lebanon over the weekend, drawing a sharp rebuke from the internationally recognized government of that country, Lebanon, which demanded that Hamas stop launching rockets and operating from the Lebanese territory. We'll give you all the details about that. TBN Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani will also give us the details about a mystery that is driving the Middle East crazy. A third explosion shook Iran over the weekend, fueling chaos amidst power outages and disruptions. The powerful explosion at a factory in Al-Boraj province and another one at the nearby power station caused extensive blackouts, even as a strong earthquake shook the region. Several thousand miles away in Washington, D.C., there was another earthquake related to Iran, but this one was political. I'm talking, of course, about National Security Advisor Mike Waltz being removed by President Trump. The move was rumored to be partially related to Waltz's consultations with Israeli officials about possibly striking Iran, something that President Trump would like to avoid if possible. And against the backdrop of this speculation, Mati will give us a closer look at the big picture at the relationship between President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Also, the IDF struck dozens of military sites, anti-aircraft guns, and SAM launchers, munitions depots, and radar stations in Syria over the weekend. All of this was important for the IDF to do in its own right, but it also provided cover for a special forces operation to assist the Druze community in southern Syria as it battles an onslaught by Sunni jihadist groups linked to the government regime of Abu Muhammad al-Julani. The IDF transferred several wounded Druze fighters to Israel for medical treatment, and the Air Force dropped 1,500 food packages to the Druze communities and the Christian villages in the region between Damascus and the Israeli border. And at the same time, Syrian media reported that Israel attacked a military post in the village of Amrit in the country's northeast overnight between Saturday and Sunday. We'll get into some of the details about why these elements linked to the regime are in Syria and are slaughtering and abusing the Druze and the Christians, and it will probably come as no surprise to anyone that the root of the issue is religious, as these Sunni jihadists see an opportunity to annihilate these minority groups and ethnically cleanse the territory under their control. And further afield, in Yemen, the rate of ballistic missile fire at Israel has drastically increased over recent days, despite 6 weeks of pounding by the United States military. And meanwhile, anti-Houthi factions told the United States that a ground operation will proceed only with Saudi and Emirati assistance, but those two countries had a very bad experience last time they tried to intervene in Yemen, and they're in no hurry to try it again. This situation has prompted the head of the internationally recognized government in Yemen to resign, saying that the Houthis are masters at disappearing underground. Airstrikes alone won't do the job. Now, getting back to the Gaza Strip, Hamas released another video of hostage Maksim Harquin over the weekend. This is 575 days after he was abducted and less than a month since the previous proof of life. This time, the video showed only Harquin without Bar Cooperstein, who appeared beside him in the previous videos. So guys, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what's happening in Israel on day 576 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shia militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are operating under the direction of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to invite you to join our team by clicking the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. You can also share our videos on YouTube and follow us on social media. But be careful, only to follow confirmed channels, as there are a lot of fake accounts out there trying to use my name and Mati's name to spread false information. So we'll start today's report by updating you on the situation in the Gaza Strip. Over the weekend, the IDF sent out notices of mobilizations of tens of thousands of IDF reservists to report to their units. This was done under Emergency Order number 8 in anticipation of an expansion of the campaign, with the hope of finally defeating Hamas once and for all and bringing this war to a successful conclusion. At present, the IDF's Golani and Givati brigades, armored brigades 188 and 401, and for the first time, all three regular combat engineering battalions are operating simultaneously in the Gaza Strip. The mobilization of reserve units, which have acquired a tremendous amount of experience and expertise over the past 18 months, will greatly enhance the offensive power of these regular units. And additionally, the reserve forces can operate independently with both Gaza and along the northern border, without the presence of regular units, increasing the operational flexibility of the IDF and giving the political echelon more options. This includes rising the intensity of fighting in the Gaza Strip, along with seeking new ways to provide humanitarian aid while denying Hamas the ability to steal this aid and use it for their own purposes. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Israel Katz, and the Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir have approved the IDF's new operational plans in the Gaza Strip in light of Hamas's refusal to move forward another phase of hostage releases. Security officials note that Hamas has recently hardened its positions based on the working assumption that President Trump will pressure Israel to fold in the negotiations ahead of his visit to Saudi Arabia on the 12th of May. Meanwhile, Israel is preparing to escalate the military activity in the Gaza Strip after the president's Middle East tour in mid-month, no progress is made in the hostage talks. And speaking of hostages, on Saturday evening, Hamas released another video and proof of life of hostage Maksim Harquin. At the request of the hostages' family's headquarters, the video, or parts of it, will be published only with the family's permission. Harquin, 36 years of age, from Tirat HaKarmel, was abducted from the Nova Music Festival at Reim on October 7th. He supports his single mother household and his 11-year-old brother, and he's himself a father to a 3-year-old girl. He was born in the Donbas region of Ukraine, and although he does not hold Russian citizenship, his daughter lives in that country, Russia. After his abduction, his mother also received Russian citizenship, and Russia therefore appealed to Hamas to release him. And once again, guys, please keep Harquin and the other hostages in prayer, as they have now been held captive in the Gaza Strip for over 575 days. Now, switching our focus a bit further afield, a commercial ship that Hamas is using to try and break the blockade of the Gaza Strip was rocked by explosions on Friday morning as it sailed in international waters near the island nation of Malta in the Mediterranean Sea. The explosions left the ship without electrical power and caused a fire, which was put out by an assisting tugboat from Malta, which also took the ship under tow. However, Malta, Greece, and Turkey have all threatened to seize the ship if it attempts to dock at one of their ports, leaving it unclear where it will be towed to. Western security sources confirmed that the vessel was en route to Gaza, and according to those sources, was operated by Hamas under a front company. The sources added that the ship was intended to provoke contact with IDF forces and that Hamas uses fake commercial covers and foreign companies to cooperate with outside parties. Israel has not officially taken responsibility for the strike, but ship operators claimed 2 IDF Israeli drones carried out the attack, which caused several structural damage to the ship, although no crew or passengers were injured. Maltese officials also spoke up, saying that the ship was hit outside of Malta's waters while in international waters and was apparently heading to the Gaza Strip to break Israel's naval blockade. The crew of the ship claims, without evidence, that the explosions on the ship were caused by attacking armed drones, implying that Israel is the one that attacked them. But Israel has denied this, even as many international media outlets have reported it as if it is an established fact. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on developments, boots on the ground in Israel, as I am now coming to you from the Ben Gurion International Israeli Airport, a few moments after a rocket was landed in this area from Yemen. Please pray for the situation. There are a few Israelis wounded. Pray for them, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and together we will win this war. Guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to TBN Israel on YouTube and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. Now switching our focus to the northern arena, overnight on Friday and Saturday, the Israeli Air Force struck dozens of infrastructure components and weapons across Syria, including anti-aircraft guns and surface-to-air missile launcher. And according to the IDF, these strikes were not directly related to Israel's support for the Druze population, which is under attack by the Sunni jihadist elements linked to the regime of Abu Muhammad al-Julani. These were strategic weapons left behind by the Assad regime, which Israel would have destroyed in order to keep them out of the wrong hands in any case. And however, alongside these strikes, the IDF also evacuated dozens of wounded Druze residents of southern Syria and transferred them to the Ziv hospital in Tzfat, an Israeli city. Large amounts of food and other humanitarian aid have also been airdropped to the Druze and the Christian villages in southern Syria over the weekend as part of Israel's ongoing campaign to protect and support these minority populations against attacks from the regime in Syria and its supporters. This follows a direct airstrike on Syria's presidential palace last Thursday evening. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz said in a joint statement following this attack that this is a clear message to the Syrian regime. We will not allow forces to move south of Damascus or any danger to the Druze community. According to the Israeli conception, the area between the border and the 80 kilometers deep inside Syria must be demilitarized. This, in addition to the obvious humanitarian concerns, is why Israel wishes to aid the Druze community as well as the Christian villages situated in this buffer zone between the two countries. And another element in this unfolding drama is the Druze population of Israel, which is putting pressure on the government to protect their kinsmen in Syria from the Sunni jihadist groups. Guys, to give some background, the root of the conflicts between the Sunni jihadists that are now ruling Syria and the Druze community is religious and goes back to the 11th century. Although the Druze are not Muslims, their religion is a branch of the Shiite Islamist stream that ruled Egypt at the end of the first millennium. The Islamic branch split from the mainstream over disagreements about who was worthy to be Imam and supreme leader, very similar to the reason for the split between the Shiites and the Sunnis hundreds of years earlier. It is important to understand that in the eyes of the Sunni jihadists, the Druze, and the principles of their secretive faith, are infidels who must be brought back to the true path. If they refuse, they must be removed from the earth, just like the Alawites living in Syria and the coastal area of Latakia and Tartus, who were the power base of the Assad family regime. So if you recall, just a few weeks ago, armed groups belonging to Tahrir al-Sham, the organization that is ruled by El-Julani and is ruling Syria now, carried out an offensive in Latakia and Tartus and massacred the Alawite residents there. These massacres were widely condemned by the international community, but no serious effort has been made to disarm these groups or otherwise protect the minorities in Syria. The Druze and the Christian villagers in southern Syria have good reason to fear that they might be the next targets of these groups. But Israel has pledged to ensure that this does not happen. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development on the Syrian border. And as always, we ask you to continue and spread the truth, share and follow us. And above all, don't forget to click the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you stay tuned to the truth in real time. Now, we switch our focus once again to an issue that we care deeply about here at TBN Israel, and that is the condition of the Israeli farmers. Thousands of reserve soldiers in Israel have been called back to duty, leaving behind their jobs and homes. That means thousands of families are left to manage on their own. For many, it also means closing down the workshops and putting other small businesses on hold just to survive. But life doesn't pause. The bills keep coming, and for small businesses and other artisans that lost income, that can be devastating. That's where Artza helps. Artza works directly with local Israeli businesses, buying their products, featuring their work, and giving them a financial boost when they need it the most. When you subscribe, you're not just receiving beautiful handmade items from the Holy Land, you're helping real people, families, get through an incredibly difficult time. You can be part of making all of this work by subscribing to Artza Box right now, and make sure to use the code TBNIL for 10% off your subscription. Go to www.artzabox.com and be part of helping Israel recover one box, one family at a time. Again, that's www.artzabox.com. Make sure to use the TBNIL code for 10% discount. Now, we move to TBN Israel senior Middle East analyst Mati Shoshani, who will tell us what's going on in Iran, where the chaos keeps building amidst the fourth mysterious explosion and widespread blackouts across the country, while negotiations with the Trump administration continue. So, Mati Shoshani, what's happening in Iran?
So this week we have news that is slightly different. We're reporting on Iranian news, because Iran has been experiencing an unprecedented series of explosions that they and no one else perhaps knows how to explain. So let me break down what's been happening. If you've been following the Middle Eastern news in the last week or week and a half, you've seen that a trending topic has been time and time again explosions, blow-ups, and let's call it infrastructure problems within Iran proper. Now, the Iranian government, it seems, have put a complete media cloak on this entire topic to prevent people from talking about and understanding what's been happening. But here's what we know so far. So the first event that we know about is a massive explosion that took place in a warehouse within a port where chemical components of rocket fuel blow up suspiciously. Now, what's suspicious about this whole thing is that the people reporting from the ground in Iran, as in eyewitnesses, people reporting on social media, what they report is that they heard initial explosions before the big, massive explosion, which indicates that there was or sabotage or someone was able to trigger this very attack. Wait, but it gets better. Then there's reports on seismic events that take place deep inside the ground, and the Iranian government once again has nothing to say. And it gets even better. Then there's reports on grid failure in extensive areas within Iran. And all of this, I mean, it's a long series of explosions, a long series of, let's call it infrastructure and grid problems, all taking place at the same time, and the Iranian government has nothing to say aside from this is from natural causes. Last week, one of the official Iranian Twitter accounts initially blames Israel and the Mossad for the explosions that took place, but after that, it seems like business is as usual. But is it really? Because what also happened at the same time as these series of explosions are taking place in Iran is the locals in Iran are pressuring their government, saying clearly this isn't an act of God, clearly this is an act of man, and someone is sabotaging our facilities, someone is bombing some key crucial locations within the country, and you know about this and you're not telling us what's truly happening. So they are losing face against or with their people time and time again, even with the fact that they're not answering, because the fact that they say nothing about this indicates that it is an act of sabotage. Now, it doesn't have to be a bomb. Some of the theories that are circulating are stating that it could be a combination of or explosive charges or cyber attacks that cause explosions or something entirely different that we're not fully aware of yet. Israel has had nothing to say about this, and neither have the Americans, but it seems that a lot is going on the ground within Iran. And where we see this really taking place, where we see the effect of these explosions and these attacks within Iran, is in the negotiations. The Iranians have stated that they're not coming to the next round of negotiations that's supposed to take place with the Americans. This will be round number 4, where they're supposed to be talking about the technical issues or technical components of them removing their nuclear military program components, specifically enriched uranium, and sanctions being removed to a certain degree. But they're saying they're not coming. And the reason is, according to an official statement by the Iranians, we don't see a point in coming when it's not doing any good for Iran, possibly referencing the fact that the explosions are taking place inside Iran as this is happening. And I'll remind you again that they initially accused Israel of being the one to sabotage and attack these facilities within Iran, possibly because it was convenient for them, and possibly because Israel maybe was behind it. And again, Israel hasn't officially claimed any responsibility whatsoever. Here's where it gets more interesting. Trump has removed Mike Waltz, who was responsible to a certain degree on the nuclear program, on a component of the nuclear agreement with the Iranians. He's been moved to a different role. And right now, Israel doesn't have an ally within the White House pushing for a more military solution to the Iranian nuclear program. And that is a problem for us. That's a problem on many levels, but specifically because Israel is the one calling for an attack on the Iranians. As far as we're considered, and by the way, several European countries are thinking the same thing and communicating the same ideas, an agreement with the Iranians that doesn't have an immediate snapback mechanism where military action is taken, sanctions are reimposed on any infraction of the agreement, would ultimately result in them once again pushing for bomb capabilities. They already have the ability to deliver the bombs. They have the ballistic and intercontinental ballistic missiles. They've enriched uranium to a great degree, almost to military level. And unless we fully remove their ability to do that, Israel is at a problem. And once more, we find ourselves at a bind. The Israeli government is opposing the American agenda. The American agenda, just to recap on a very long conversation, is leaning more and more towards what would be an agreement as a solution for this problem versus a military option. And at the time, as we're recording this, there still is a military option on the table. Israel has been practicing and training its Air Force, and the Americans have an incredible amount of assets on the ground, all poised to attack within Iran. So where's this all taking us? Well, we don't really know. The fact that the Iranians are no longer willing to continue with the direct negotiations is something that needs to be taken into account. They might be looking at this from one of two ways. One way would be they have no plan to actually comply and they're just pulling out of the negotiation. Another one is this series of attacks that have taken place within Iran, that is very likely not from natural causes, has destabilized their regime and forcing them to take action in a way that they weren't planning to before, and might be forcing their hand in the negotiation. But again, as everything in this region, only time will tell. And when you factor into that the fact that Houthi attacks, or attacks by the American army on the Houthis, and attacks by the Houthis on Israel and US assets in the region is only increasing, including today as this airs, an attack that hit just outside of the Israeli Ben Gurion Airport, all of that combines brings us to a place where we really don't know where this agreement is going. And there is no point in guessing, and there is no point in betting, because there are too many moving pieces here. But what we can do is hope and pray that the American administration and President Trump do the right thing for the people of Israel and the people of the US, which is fully dismantle the Iranian nuclear capability. And at the same time, that the maximum military and sanction pressure campaign continues to the point where Iran no longer has a bomb. And now back to Yair Pinto.
Thank you very much, Mati. You've brought some badly needed clarity to this very confusing situation, and we'll keep watching in the coming days ahead to see what will happen next in Iran. And next, we shift our focus to Yemen, where the Houthis fired yet another ballistic missile at Israel on Sunday morning, and that hit right here behind where I'm standing in the Ben Gurion International Airport. This is the latest in a string of attacks that include 4 launches over the weekend. The attack on Sunday was successful in penetrating Israel's air defensive systems, hitting near the Ben Gurion International Airport where I am standing in the field here behind me, but causing no damage, and some people were harmed due to this incident, but no casualties. This was the first attack on this area of central Israel in 2 weeks, and more recent attacks targeted the Haifa area or the Negev region around Beersheba, and immediately following the impact, flights in and out of the airport were temporarily suspended while safety crews checked the runways for debris. And meanwhile, the IDF said it was investigating how the missile managed to evade the attempts to intercept it. This escalation underscores the widening reach of Houthi missile threats now targeting central Israeli infrastructure for the first time since hostilities began. Security forces remain on high alert across all the region. And a month and a half of massive United States air and sea strikes against the Houthis, lately joined by Britain, has not prevented the terror organization that rules northwest Yemen from carrying out strikes on Israel. And in recent weeks, alerts have sounded all over the country following such launches, and sometimes they were intercepted without any sirens at all because the interception took place outside of the Israeli territory. The Red Sea blockade also continues, together with a severe economic blow to Israel and Egypt. Facing this situation, the world has begun to ask whether what the United States is now doing is enough, or whether only a broad ground operation will eventually bring the Houthis to surrender. Since the American operation began on the night of the 15th to the 16th of March, the Trump administration has executed twice as many airstrikes against the Houthis as the Biden administration carried out in 13 months. CENTCOM said that the operation has hit more than 800 Houthi targets and eliminated hundreds of militants, including senior figures. In addition, the United States claims ballistic missile launches have dropped by 69% and UAV attacks by 55%. But the goal of the campaign is to bring Houthi aggression against Israel and in the Red Sea to an end, and it has not been achieved so far. Instead, what remains of the Houthi leadership have gone underground, while street demonstrations against the United States and against Israel are held every week in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a, attracting thousands of participants. And in recent weeks, the Houthi launches have reached almost every region in Israel, and the pace is not slowing down. On the contrary, it is increasing and becoming more accurate. Israel has lately explained that the decision not to retaliate against the Houthis stems from the fact that the United States is the one that is acting against them. The fact that they fire means nothing, a security source said earlier this week. The American operation is very effective. The Houthis still have the ability to launch, but they can't launch in quantities. Most launches are intercepted or fall short. So from Israel's perspective, the Houthi threat is mainly a pesky fly. Now, that was said before Sunday morning strike, which, as I said, landed right here at the Ben Gurion International Airport in a field of oranges. We'll have to see if that changes the government's calculations and decisions regarding the Houthis. I can also say on a personal level that having to take my half-asleep children down to the bomb shelters in the middle of the night is not a very, comfortable thing, a nice thing to do. But we are stronger, and we will go through this, and we will remain here in Israel, because that's where God wants us to be. So, what's the bottom line? In the end, there will be no choice but to get rid of this Houthi regime, which has hijacked Yemen and is using it to threaten Israel, damage the economy of the entire world, and oppress the local population, all with Iranian support. The American strikes are doing good work, but strategically, they fail to build a deterrent balance against the Houthis, who may be hit, but their motivation to act is still very high. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we'll keep spreading the truth, and as always, we ask you to help us share what's happening in Israel with the world, so that you will know how to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So let's unite in prayer for the peace of the people of Israel, for all the security personnel that are here around me, protecting, organizing, making sure that the flights resume and that everybody is healthy. Let's pray for those that were harmed, that are scared, that are part of this situation here in the airport. Let's pray for our hostages to come back home. And most importantly, let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem. This is a spiritual war. There is a reason that the Houthis are launching rockets at Israel. None of them ever met an Israeli or a Jew. But the hatred is supernatural, and we need the love to also be supernatural for Israel. Thank you so much for all your prayers, your support, and keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.